Chag Sameach, everybody. I thank you for inviting me to share these Pesach thoughts with you. And I ask you to imagine yourself hearing them in Shul on Yom Tov morning, which of course is where we would all like to be. And please God, we will all be there soon. I would like to examine an aspect of the Pesach story which has been brought into sharp focus this year in particular. On the eve of the Exodus, the Jews in Egypt had to slaughter the Pesach lamb, put its blood on their doorposts and lintels, and then roast and eat the lamb as a Pesach sacrifice. They also had to do something that we have sadly become all too familiar with. There was a risk of death if they went outside, so they had to stay in their homes. What did this set of rules mean? Before answering our question, I want to make it harder. The Mechilta cites an argument about where exactly the blood was. Rabbi Yitzchak says it was on the outside, to teach the Egyptians who worshipped the lamb that their God was powerless. However, Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Yonasan say that the blood was put on the inside of the Jews' doorposts, where only they could see it. This is a majority view, so we cannot discount it. What was the point of the Jews putting the blood inside their homes? What did the Jews stand to learn from seeing it on their doorposts? We can perhaps understand this by first thinking about the symbolism of isolation. The street in Egypt was the public space, a place owned by and dominated by Egypt. It was permeated with the Egyptian culture of self-indulgence, discrimination, and cruelty. This was the culture that God could not allow to endure. It had to die for the sake of humanity, and those who identified with it will be swept away with it. So God said to the Jewish people, "Dare to step away from the culture of the majority. It will pass away, and you are to be an eternal people, an everlasting beacon of holiness and kindness, in a world that will sometimes be profane and savage. If you step into the street on the night of your national birth, that means you have thrown your lot in with the Egyptians, and you will die with them." Perhaps for us too, the current social isolation that we are all undergoing is a challenge to us all to withdraw from the aspects of popular culture which are at odds with the Jewish mission, its gossip, its persecution and objectifying of women, its craving for wealth and power and entertainment, its negligence about the life of the spirit, its rejection of all that is old. We are to think again about our identity and heritage. Whether we like it or not, the time we live in forces us to immerse ourselves in the atmosphere of a Jewish home, compelling us to question how a Jewish home looks and how it should look. Besides, with all this extra time on our hands, we are brought up short by the question of what life is for beyond working, shopping, leisure, and holidaying. This Pesach night is different to all other Pesach nights. We are reliving an unheeded detail of the Exodus in minute detail. And now we come to the blood on the doorposts and the lintels. Let us take the approach of Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Yonasan. According to them, when the Jews were in their homes, the blood was visible on the doorposts and the lintels to the Jews specifically. It framed not the entrances to their homes, seen from the outside, but seen from the inside, it framed their exit onto the world. What did this mean? It is easy to understand the symbolism of the Pesach lamb and its blood. The lamb is a gentle young creature, following its parent or the shepherd. We too are to be gentle and loyal, following God, our Father and Shepherd, with unwavering trust. The lamb's blood symbolizes life itself, as blood is the bearer of life. Without blood, we die. The lamb's blood, therefore, slaughtered and offered, symbolizes a life given over to God. When we sacrificed those lambs, we pledged our lives to God in trust and loyalty. We promised to follow him, and to do so not as savage lions out for blood, but as gentle lambs ready to shed their blood. And we put this blood over the exits to our homes, since even when we were in isolation on that awesome night, our mood was not just negative. It was not and is not enough for us Jews merely to withdraw from the worst of our world. Rather, we are called to look ahead to our exit onto the world when it is ready to receive us, even when we are penned in our homes in fear of our lives. Our exit onto the world is framed with the pledge of the Lamb. And so it is with us as well. Even now, as we think about what it means to be a Jew in a Jewish home, as we have the time to think about what life itself is for, we contemplate our next move. There will come a day when the lockdown is over and the coronavirus is past. We will step back into the world. But how will that step look? Will we simply hurl ourselves onto all the things that we have missed and shrug off the whole coronavirus tragedy as a blip, an accident of history? Or will we have gained from our isolation, deepening and relearning our own identity, especially through Pesach, stepping out through a sacred archway of sacrifice, faith and gentleness, as the Jews in Egypt did on that first Pesach morning? Our imprisonment can be a gift of self-knowledge, and the freedom that is coming down the track can be a gift of self-realization and a new and better life. The story of Pesach isolation and liberation calls on us not to squander these gifts, not to allow this time to slip away, but to use it to step out through a triumphal arch of holiness and a new awareness of God. While we acknowledge the terrible tragedy of the bereavements and the sickness in our midst and all around, let us also remember the challenging lesson of our times. Let us listen attentively. Let us learn and grow, and let us in due course claim our freedom in the spirit of the Exodus. Chag Sameach, and thank you for listening.